One of the things that really affects your post-production efficiency is hard drive performance. So today I'm upgrading my hard drive speed testing. Now that we've got Thunderbolt 5, Thunderbolt 4, USB 2x2, USB 4, we're going to demystify some of that and do some real-world speed tests on newer drives on both Mac and PC. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. While you're watching this, Rick LePage and I are on Mount Rainier with an amazing group of photographers having a blast on a workshop. But, over the last couple of weeks, I've actually been updating my desktop photo and video editing system with a new Mac Studio Ultra, largely because it has Thunderbolt 5. It has lots of Thunderbolt 5 ports, and I just think that at this particular point, there is nothing better than Thunderbolt 5. I was convinced of that messing around with Rick's new M4 MacBook Pro. There are all these different standards of USB and USB-C and Thunderbolt 3, 4, 5, and I know it's confusing. Gigabits per second, 10, 20, 40, 80. And so I want to demystify that a little bit in this particular video and walk you through testing using Blackmagic disk speed test. And I'll show you how to get that whether you're a PC user or a Mac user. It's real simple and it gives you a really effective way to see if your drive, port, and cable are working in unison the way that you think they are. So we'll go through and we'll test the internal drives of both my Asus ProArt StudioBook 16, a very fast, powerful PC, as well as my brand new Mac Studio Ultra, M3 Ultra, which has 6 Thunderbolt 5 ports and is raging fast. The Asus ProArt StudioBook 16 has Thunderbolt 3. And let's talk about a couple of things. One is the port that you use on your computer matters. A lot of computers have multiple different ports. Some are USB-C, some are Thunderbolt. We'll talk a little bit more about those different standards in a second. And the cable that you use matters. Some cables are Thunderbolt 5 capable. That means it can go to 80 gigabits per second. Some are Thunderbolt 4 or 3 capable, 40 gigabits per second. Some are USB and they'll label them 10 gigabits, 20 gigabits, 40 gigabits. I'm going to put links to the drives that I'm talking about and good solid cables in this video, all right? But I want to talk just for a second. We're going to pull up something here on my desktop and I'm going to share it with you, which is looking at different speeds, all right? You'll see this 10 GB per second with a small b. That's gigabits, not gigabytes. If you Google that, if you search what is that in gigabytes per second, you'll see that 10 gigabits per second. One of those older speeds that we did is 1.25 gigabits per second. That's 1,250 megabytes per second. That's pretty fast, all right? We go to 20 gigabits per second. Of course, that's 2.5 gigabytes per second. You can imagine just through the power of math that 40 equals 5 gigabytes per second and 80 is 10 gigabytes per second. OWC has long been making some of the best docks and drives. Now, I'm not sponsored by them or anything else. I'll have some affiliate links to some of their products in this video, but I've been a huge fan of their Thunderbolt docks and their drives for years. Not necessarily their big network attached storage or their RAID array drives. For that, I've been more of a Synology fan. But for their docks, cables, and smaller external drives, they've always been amazing. And so they also have a really nice explainer page on Thunderbolt 5. All right, if you go over to their site, go to Solutions and click on Thunderbolt 5, there's this nice explainer. And it gives you sort of what standard USB-C usually is about 5 or 10 gigabits per second, but it can go up to 20 gigabits per second. That is with that USB 2x2, 2x2. And Samsung's T9 drives, which they sell, and they advertise being really, really fast. That technology relies on USB 2x2, Well, I started exploring, I haven't really found any devices in my world that have USB 2x2. So I kind of went looking around for a good explainer of that, and on Kingston's website, and I'll link this in this video's full description, there's a whole thing about USB Gen 2x2. And it uses multiple lanes to deliver up to 20 gigabits per second data transfer rate. The problem is, it's kind of like Betamax in the old days of VHS versus Betamax tapes before we had DVDs. The old school video. There was something that was better than VHS, but it never caught fire. All right, DVDs came out, other things happened. It just never caught fire, and that's what's happened with USB 2x2, which is why I've never recommended the Samsung T9 drives. They're not really very much faster in practical real-world applications with computers that don't have USB 2x2. And I will guarantee, just almost guarantee, unless you've bought an accessory adapter or built a computer with a custom motherboard, that you don't have USB 2x2. It just never caught on, all right? And so that's your speeds with USB-C. USB 4, that's something newer that PCs are starting to come out with. They can get 40 gigabits per second. There's a new standard coming, USB 4.2. USB is always so confusing, but there's a new standard coming. Again, I haven't seen any computers with it yet, but it can theoretically support up to 80 gigabits per second. And that's why OWC is placing this yellow line here, right? And both of those are sort of theoretical. Thunderbolt 3 usually supported up to 20 gigabits per second and sometimes could squeeze up to 40. Thunderbolt 4 allowed 40 gigabits per second. Now remember, 40 gigabits per second is 5 gigabytes per second. All right, this is speed moving through that pipeline. Again, the cable that you're using matters. It has to be rated for this. If you're using a drive that's Thunderbolt 4, and your port is Thunderbolt 4, but you use a standard USB-C cable, what are you going to get? You're going to get something like 10 or 20 gigabits per second, depending on the quality of the cable. So you have to remember that. All right, I'm going to put some links to cables that are rated at 40 gigabits per second and some Thunderbolt 4 cables. Thunderbolt 5 accessories come with their own cable. They'd be very expensive to buy. That's the newest thing. But you see Thunderbolt 5 straight up goes to 80 gigabits per second with the potential for 120 gigabits per second video streaming performance. That's just nuts. That's just crazy. So it led me to start testing some things and testing the latest OWC Envoy Ultra drive, which I have one connected right here with my Lightroom catalog on it, on Rick's laptop. His new MacBook 4 sort of pushed me to order this new Mac Studio with Thunderbolt 5. And I'll show you why, all right? So I talked about testing drive speeds. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use Blackmagic speed test. For those of you on the Mac, it's really simple. You can go over to the App Store and you can download Blackmagic Disk Speed Test. And you can use it just like I'm using on your system to test your own drive speeds and kind of confirm all this stuff, all right? If you're on a PC, it's a little more complicated. You got to go over to blackmagicdesign.com. They do a lot of video production and editing products. And you're gonna go into their support center and type desktop video as a product family. And up here in the latest downloads will come desktop video 14.5, and you can download it, install it on your Windows machine, and then in your app section, in your software section on your Windows machine, you'll find Blackmagic Disk Speed Test. You can just throw it into your menu. So that's how we get it. All right. So I'm going to shut this down. And I said first we'll test system drive. Okay, so we're gonna select target drive, and I'm just gonna go into, say, my desktop. All right, that's the drive we're gonna test. That's my system drive in the new Ultra, and it is a screaming machine again. So we'll go ahead and we'll hit the disk speed test. Holy cow. 6.5 megabytes per second write speed. 6.7, 54. It's actually reading a little slower than it's writing. It's just nuts how fast that is, all right? And so Every drive we test is going to write the same amount of data and then read that data back. It's the same amount. So that just gives you a sense of how fast this machine is internally. It's a lot faster than my very, very fast Asus ProArt Studio book, which is still no slouch. So we're going to open up the Blackmagic disk speed test right here. And I'm going to select a target drive, and I'm going to choose my desktop, same test, all right? And I'll hit start. No slouch. It's about half as fast, but no slouch. Oh, really fast reading, all right? So there you go. You know, fast. 3.2 gigabytes per second, 4.17 gigabytes per second. And these are straight up gigabytes per second because it's, you see, the test numbers are in megabytes per second, not megabits, megabytes, the capital B. Capital B is bytes, small b is bits. Bits are smaller than bytes. All right. So that's test one. All right. Now let's test these new Thunderbolt 5 drives. All right. I'll set that up. So this is OWC's new Thunderbolt 5 Envoy Ultra drive. And this is what I'm setting up my editing workflow around. So I ordered my new studio with 2 terabytes of system drive, and I'm just using these externally, and you'll see why I'm more than happy with that, all right? So this is sort of my video editing data drive. I put all the video that I'm working on this drive, and I'm just gonna plug it in to this Thunderbolt 5 port. This drive comes with a Thunderbolt 5 cable already attached. It's not cheap, but if you want real speed, it isn't necessarily cheap, and it has sped up my workflow considerably, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead, select target drive, and in here you'll see my active data drive is popped up here, and I'm just gonna go into its root directory, all right? And I'll hit speed test. Holy cow, 5 gigabytes per second, both directions. Let it run. Almost as fast as the internal drive on this machine. Holy cow, all right? Now, when I'm using these external drives, I wanna right click and say eject. You can also just click and drag it down to your dock, and you can drop it in the trash. I don't wanna drop it in the trash. I don't know why I did that. Just eject it, right click and eject it, all right? So it's ejected safely. I'm gonna bring it over and I'm gonna install it on the PC. I'm plugging it in to my Thunderbolt 3 port. That's a considerably slower port than Thunderbolt 5. We're gonna open this guy up, go to this PC, there's the drive. I'm gonna go ahead and select it, and we'll hit speed test here. Still over 2 gigabytes a second, almost as fast as the internal drive. Boom, still really blazing fast. Now I formatted these NTFS because I'm a PC and Mac user, and then I have Paragon NTFS for Mac installed. That's some software. It's not all that expensive for a lifetime license. It just lets the Mac read an NTFS formatted drive for Windows as if it were a native Mac drive. The beauty of that is it's a little bit safer system than exFAT, and it's a little bit faster reading system than exFAT, particularly on the PC. So that's why I've done that, all right? So I'm gonna, on the same way, I'm gonna eject. I click this little button to open up my active software, and there's a little ejection safely remove hardware, and I'm gonna eject this drive. Boop, it's ready to go. All right, so that guy's done, all right? Now, I wanna showcase an older Thunderbolt 3 drive for the Mac and PC. This is an older setup that OWC made that I've used a fair bit over time as scratch drives on my system, you know, sort of virtual RAM if you run out of RAM. These drives are really cool. You can open them up with a screwdriver and put an NVMe M.2 drive in. Now their maximum speed though was about 1.5 gigabytes a second, 1500 megabytes a second, which used to be really fast not that long ago. Things are changing. So this isn't just an Envoy Express drive. And I have a Western Digital red and 2 terabyte NVMe drive installed in here. So I'm gonna plug it into the studio first. We'll speed test it. And we're going from fastest to slowest here as we run through these tests. So I'm gonna select the target drive, and we're gonna use this Envoy 2 terabyte, and I'll hit speed test. Like I said, it's about 1500. It's not really getting there though. And that's the crazy thing with Thunderbolt 5 is it does seem to truly get to the speed. You know, this one with writing, see it drops a little bit over sustained writing. You're losing a little bit of speed. Reading is doing great though. Right up there at that 1500 megabytes per second as advertised. All right, so we'll eject this guy. Maybe I need to close that. That's fine. We'll eject this guy, plug it into our PC. There it is. Open it up. Run it. It's interesting. It's just a little bit slower on the PC. Read speed's pretty good though, but it's a little bit slower through the Thunderbolt 3 port than the Thunderbolt 5 port and over the PC's architecture. And I can't fully explain it. It's formatted NTFS, or it's actually formatted exFAT. It might be because it's formatted exFAT for quick sharing. I'm not totally sure, but fast. It's still very, very fast, all right? So let's go ahead and eject this guy. All right. Now, something that I want to talk about and test is my network attached storage over 10 gigabit Ethernet. Hang on just 1 second and I'll set that up. All right, so a lot of you who've been following me for a while know that I store my photographs and edit my photographs and store my archival video footage and even sometimes edit video footage right from my network attached storage drive, my big 8-bay Synology 1821 Plus, which has 8 10 terabyte drives working in unison as one, writing and reading at the same time, flowing data from that NAS to a 10 gigabit Ethernet switch. So remember what 10 gigabits is a little more than a gigabyte per second, right? 10 gigabits. So you have to have the right kind of Ethernet cable, either Cat6 or Cat5e for shorter runs, good solid Ethernet cable. You have to have a 10 gigabit switch. You have to have a 10 gigabit capable network attached storage device. The network attached storage device is like its own computer on the network. It plugs into the router, it plugs into the switch, your computer plugs into the switch. That's one nice thing with the Mac Studios, both the first generation and this new generation, they have 10 gigabit Ethernet switches built in. If you have a desktop tower PC, you can get a 10 gigabit Ethernet PCIe card, very, very cheap. They work great. I've got one in my old desktop in the corner that works as a studio server. You can use an OWC Thunderbolt Pro dock that has it built in and converts Thunderbolt to 10 gigabit Ethernet or 10 gigabit Ethernet to Thunderbolt, which plugs right into my laptop when I'm over on my desk. So right now, my Mac Studio has that network, that 10 gigabit Ethernet network connected in, and my huge storage system, my network attached storage and several different folders on it are connected right up and networked into this computer. So let's test the speed of that. That's probably the next fastest thing I've got, and it works very, very well. So if I go in here to my studio, I have several drives in there, and we'll just test my main drive, and I'll run the test. So now this is with a standard old school hard drive. It's writing. Sometimes I let it run a couple times. It's like warming the NAS up and the data throughput. Look at that, it's reading at a gigabyte a second. That's maxed out 10 gigabit. Writing on its second run through, yeah, dipping down, still pretty darn good, all right? That is better than you get from a lot of SSDs. So, and this thing has, I think it's 48 or 50 terabytes of space on it. So just kind of bottomless storage space for me to work with and very, very fast. This is plenty fast for photo editing, all right? So that's where I keep my photos, and having that kind of speed from a network attached storage device is great to have. And that's where that fits into this grand scheme, all right? The next thing I'm gonna do is a Samsung T7 drive. One more thing I wanted to slip in here really quickly is a plug for Rick and my new organizing course. It's a long format video course with an accompanying ebook. And for those of you using Lightroom Classic to organize your images, if you have questions about, what should I put on the fastest hard drive? Where should my catalog live? Where should the software live? Where should the images live? We break that all down, and you can really apply it to some of this information about these different drives that I'm talking about. And I think it can be really beneficial for a whole lot of people to get a handle on organizing their images and editing them with the most possible efficiency and making sure that they're completely backed up safely, both locally and out in the cloud. So we're really, really proud of the course and the ebook. And if you have questions about it, hit us up. You can always run over to my website, hudsonhenry.com, click on training and courses to find that. You can click right here to run over to the course directly. Email us about any questions you have about it. We've been getting wonderful feedback, and it's great to feel like we're helping a lot of people better organize their workflow. All right. The Samsung T7 drives are what I've been using for years for my Lightroom catalog, for extra storage on the road with photographs to edit off of, for backup drives. These days, I'm switching and I'm moving these to backup drives. They are still, to my mind, about the best USB-C fast SSD drive for the money that you can get out there. Their performance is quite good. But I noticed that, with a huge Lightroom catalog, speed performance was slowing down a little bit for me, and I have noticed a significant improvement moving over, unsurprisingly, to this OWC Envoy Ultra. Not a cheap move, but a speed move. I mean, it is blazing fast, faster than the internal hard drive on my laptop, almost as fast when connected to the laptop, but almost twice as fast. Or actually, it is twice as fast when connected to the Mac Studio, editing here in the studio. So again, I'm not testing a Samsung T9 because I don't have a USB 2x2 capable device, and I doubt any of you do either. So those theoretical speeds that they achieve with the T9 drives are probably not achievable by most of you. When you buy a drive like this, the cable that comes with it is rated for its maximum possible speed, all right? So you don't have to worry, you just use the cable that's included. Or again, a good quality cable like the ones that I link in this video's description. You can always run over to the digital darkroom section of my website. I keep that updated. You can go to my links over at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. Just click right here and check out the digital downloads section, and I'll have all this stuff linked whenever you want to go and look at it. But there's also links in this video's full description. All right, so we're going to plug the trusty T7. This is a 2 terabyte T7 drive in here to the studio. It lit up. We're going to select it. There it is, 2 terabyte T7. Open it, run it. It's got some caching. It's pretty darn good, right? 860 megabyte per second write speed. It's about as good as my NAS. Not quite as good reading, but most of what you're doing when you're editing is reading, so it's close. The write speed is quite good. Now, one thing I will say with these drives, yeah, there we go. So about 700 megabytes per second. Really, really good. Nowhere near what you get with the Ultra, but good. One thing that I noticed, though, is that the performance can really decline as you start having a lot of tiny little files on it, which is what preview files in your Lightroom catalog does. And over time, using a Samsung T7 drive as my Lightroom catalog drive, I found the speed decreasing to about 50% of this with a clean, open, brand newly formatted drive. So something to consider. I've been using the new Ultra drive for a while. It's not slowing down one bit. It is just blazing fast. So I still recommend the Samsung T7 drives very, very highly. All right, let's eject it. Test it over on the laptop. It's up. Select it in the speed test as target drive. There it is. Run it. Yep. It's funny, the Mac or the PC is actually a little bit faster with this drive. I noticed that earlier when I was testing it. They're great drives. There's nothing wrong with them. Okay, fast, fast, fast. All right, so we'll eject that guy. And then I'm only going to run one more test, and it's just to show how far we've come since we used to work with spinning hard drives. All right, we've come a long way, so check this out. This USB 3 drive, I think it's 3.2 Gen 1 or Gen 2, but it doesn't really matter because spinning hard drives are limited with their data throughput. This drive was one of the fastest spinning external portable hard drives I ever had before I moved to SSDs. And we're going to plug it in and do a speed test on it. All right, so I'm plugging it into a Thunderbolt 3 dock that's connected actually to a Thunderbolt 5 dock in my studio. All right, and I want you to think about one more thing. You can connect when you have 80 gigabits of bandwidth, all right, 10 gigabytes per second, you can connect a whole bunch of things into that port and all be feeding data at the same time, as long as they don't get up above that 80 gigabits per second all together coming through. They won't even get slowed down. So in this case, I have a Thunderbolt 5 dock, a new thing from OWC. I love OWC's docks, plugged into a single Thunderbolt 5 port on the back of this new studio. So that can provide up to 80 gigabits per second. Then I have this Thunderbolt 3 dock, an older one of theirs that's great, that has a micro SD reader, an SD reader, headphones, all kinds of fast Thunderbolt and USB 3.2.2, 20 gigabits per second drives connected, USB-C ports, all kinds of stuff on the back. And almost all the peripherals on my desktop are running off this Thunderbolt 3 dock, all through one Thunderbolt 5 connection on this Thunderbolt 5 dock through one of the 6 connectors there, and it's nowhere near maxed out. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead. I'm actually going to plug straight into the Thunderbolt 5 dock because it's got a 20 gigabits per second USB connection. It's the fastest we can do. That's flowing straight through that dock into the PC or into the studio. I'm going to select the target drive, and we just came up with that 2 terabyte blue drive. All right, so we've got that selected, and we'll run the speed test. It has a little caching happening, starts out fast, slows down. Ooh. Oh, really slows down. Had a little hiccup on the way. It's funny, I noticed the opposite thing happens with the Mac versus the PC. The Mac, it sort of slows down over time. The PC, it sort of speeds up over time. I mean, this is a fast spinning hard drive. We're writing the same amount of data, remember, in all of these tests. That's got a hiccup there. There we go. All right. So 140 megabytes per second. It's not terrible. Let's see what the read speed is. That's what I usually find is about 120, 130 megabytes per second max on a spinning hard drive. It's just orders of magnitude slower. You know, this is the norm in the old days. I don't think we have to wait the whole dial to spin. All right, let's eject it. Give it a sec. There it goes. And we'll plug it into a fast 20 gigabits per second USB 2.2 port on the PC. Wait for it to pop up. I think it just did. We'll select it. Western Digital, yeah, or no, 2 terabyte blue. I think it's actually a Seagate drive, but it's fast, 720 RPM. All right, we're going to go ahead and start the test. Yep, see, it's slower on the PC, but it's steadier. It's interesting. It builds up. It starts slow and builds. Yeah. I think you're going to find that both tests are pretty equivalent. You know, I think it gets painful to watch the dial move so slowly with a spinning drive. We're definitely in an age where we want to be working with SSDs. All right, so I'll grab all these drives and kind of wrap up. All right, so what's the take home from all this? To my mind, it's that, you know, keep in mind the gigabits per second, or not gigabytes. Gigabits per second. 40 gigabits per second is 5 gigabytes per second. all right, 5,000 megabytes per second. 80 gigabits per second is 10 gigabytes per second. Fast, fast, fast. And that revolution with Thunderbolt 5 is really blurring the lines between the fastest of internal hard drive speeds capable and an external hard drive. It changes the game. It lets you have insane speed. And it's caused me to sort of jump from my recommended Samsung T7 drive up to the Envoy Ultra. It is really an amazing drive by OWC. I'm just setting the Lightroom catalog drive right next to my active video catalog, and editing video has become faster than I've imagined possible with external drives. I'm still using Samsung T7 drives to back up in the field as additional storage space because I have a bunch of them. I don't think there's anything wrong with those of you using them. And you can test the speed using that Blackmagic disk speed test, whether you're on a PC or a Mac. Make sure you're using the correct cables. I've got links to all of this stuff in my store. For those of you with NAS storage, having that massive capacity with 10 gigabit speed up to a gigabyte a second is awesome. I can imagine that in the future, USB 4.2 is going to come and join Thunderbolt 5 in giving us those kinds of insane speeds. I don't know how much more we need past that. I would also imagine that there'll be faster Ethernet standards than 10 gigabits coming along for the masses. 10 gigabits is starting to get standardized, and it's going to be amazing for everyone as it comes around. It's a little bit spendy at this point, but it is wonderful having massive pots of storage with that amount of speed, both for archiving and photo editing. So, if you have the resources and you really want to up the speed of your system, getting something new, a new Mac that has Thunderbolt 5 connections and these Envoy Ultra drives, you don't even need to get a very big hard drive on your Mac, because these Thunderbolt 5 drives connected to those Thunderbolt 5 ports are darn near as fast as that blazing fast internal memory that comes with the Mac. So you can save a little bit on speccing the Mac with massive amounts of storage just by buying these Envoy Ultra drives. Not that they're cheap, but they're far cheaper than speccing your Mac with massive amounts of storage. For those of you using T7 drives, they're great. They still are wonderful. There's nothing wrong with them, but there is something a little bit better out there. All right. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you're all out there staying creative, staying safe, and we'll see you next week.